message to the billionaire class: you can't have it all.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the evolution of now. My name is Christopher Robinson, because I always forget that. I might as well just put it right off the bat here. I am joined this week by my two good friends, Michael Beswick. How are you doing, Michael, this week?
I am exhausted.
That's sad. Very sad. Not winning. But
I don't have the stamina. I just don't have the stamina.
He just doesn't have the stamina anymore. It's really pathetic. But we're also here with Jordan Speed. How are you doing, Jordan?
Hello. I'm doing pretty okay. Life is pretty crazy, but you know what? Just got to keep on keeping on. But also, I would like to point out the fact that you are channeling your inner Elvis on this episode. Like the way that you introed us into this thing, you were like, and welcome. Like you had this slur.
Welcome.
That was his mad Elvis like, and I was like, what is he doing?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I didn't.
I didn't pick up on what you're putting down there, Jordan.
Sorry, I just have superior headphones. I can pick up on those kind of things.
They're quite big league. They're huge. They're
Trump headphones.
They're the best. A lot of people are saying so. But Aubrey couldn't be with us today. She had some personal matters with her family that she had to attend to. She should be back next week, though, and she will probably tell us all about it at that point. But let's just get on to this week, though. Apparently, there was this little dinner thing that just happened recently. I guess it was sort of like a press dinner kind of thing for the White House and lawmakers and stuff to get together with the press and have a nice little chuckle together and have a nice little evening. And I have a bunch of clips from one person talking. Her name's Michelle Wolf. Now, she's been getting ridiculed like crazy in the news and everything. And I do have a clip of probably the reason why that is. One of the clips in particular is going to be the last one, I think, in the lineup here. But yeah, I have a bunch of clips that I wanted to play about her or of her. She is a comedian. I believe she actually works for Comedy Central and The Daily Show. I believe, but
Wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. But if you have something to say, Jordan.
Whoa, how'd you know? Dun dun. So yeah, I mean, so yes, that is accurate. She is a contributor to The Daily Show, and she's also like she's going to go on to have her own like comedy specials and her own show too, like her own like late night show.
Nice.
Daily Show.
Yeah, she killed it.
Super exciting. Yeah.
She was
like,
killing it.
After you hear this, it's going like you're going to like want to set all your DVRs for this, whatever she's about to come up with.
Yeah.
But yeah, she bruised a lot of like right-wing snowflakes that night.
And even she was very equal opportunity. She even
oh, for sure.
She even gave a seriously poignant jab to the Democrats, and absolutely 100% agree with it. She jabbed
like
the media. She was punching. She was throwing haymakers everywhere. It was crazy.
And
but
she was saying everything that everyone really wanted to say.
Yeah. So
apart from the people in that room. The people in that room hated her guts. Everyone else in the world loved her.
Yeah. I mean, some people were enjoying it, but I was probably more like when they were enjoying when someone else was being made fun of, but then when it was their turn to be made fun of, they probably were the one like this anymore.
There was a moment she said something about Kellyanne, and it turned to the Cameron Kellyanne. She had that.
She was so not happy. Same with like Sarah Huckabee Sanders. If you go and watch that part of it, oh man, she was not happy with it. But I didn't actually pull those clips because I like everyone is up in arms about those ones, or especially the Sarah Huckabee Sanders one. That's the one that everyone's like latching onto and saying that she was really mean about and everything. I don't care. She's a comedian. She was doing jokes. They were funny, and I don't care. But I pulled other things that were more important, I think. You can listen to those other clips about Sarah anywhere else out there. So let's start from the beginning here. This is like right at the intro of her skit here.
Good evening. Here we are, the White House Correspondents Dinner. Like a porn star says when she's about to have sex with a Trump, let's get this over with.
So she starts it off strong, I'd say. And
yeah, you know what you're going to get.
And hitting it good. But let's keep going.
And just a reminder to everyone, I'm here to make jokes. I have no agenda. I'm not trying to get anything accomplished. So everyone that's here from Congress, you should feel right at...
Oh, man. And she's just punching everywhere, though.
And I know as much as some of you might want me to, it's 2018 and I'm a woman, so you cannot shut me up. Unless you have Michael Cohen wire me $130,000. Michael, you can find me on Venmo under my porn star name, Reince Priebus.
Oh, man. So, yeah, Reince Priebus, for those that don't know, he is actually a Republican. I believe he actually he used to run the RNC. I don't remember if he does anymore. Actually, I can't remember.
Didn't they replace him?
They may have replaced him. I can't remember.
And also, don't forget, he was Trump's White House chief of staff too. He got out early. He's one of the early dropouts.
Oh, okay, yeah. Him and Trump did not see eye to eye because Reince Priebus is more of like, he's more on the side, I think, of the old school Republicans, I think, but he's still not a great person or anything, but that's okay. But let's get some more clips in here, though. These are great.
It turns out the president of the... He said it first. Yeah, he did. Good.
Oh, it's just so perfect. It's just so perfect.
She's like, man, and the thing is, like, there's so many people within the Trump administration that were there that night, and so like she basically she has the room and she's forcing them to freaking like listen to what you are doing and who you are. Like it's so good.
I said, everyone in that room hated her, but everyone in the world loved her.
Yeah,
totally.
I have an internet crush.
No, like
so many. Yeah, go Chris.
I was just going to say, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is sitting like literally 2 seats away from her while she's saying all this too. And she's one of the ones that gets hit mercilessly by her later on in the thing, but I don't have that clip. But yeah.
What was it? She burns facts and then uses the ashes to create to do a makeup.
To create the perfect smoky eye. And that's the one thing that everyone latches onto. And that's just like smoky eye, I think, is just a way. It's either a type of makeup or a way of putting on makeup around the eyes. Yeah. I don't know because I'm not into makeup.
It's essentially just an effect.
Yeah, we need someone who knows what makeup is.
Damn it, Aubrey.
No, yeah, it's all her fault for not being here today.
No, I know a little bit. It's just like it's literally a smoky effect that you give above the eye, you know. And I guess that's one of her trademarks. It's something that Sanders has done often.
Yeah, but I have a feeling the outrage isn't really about that. And we're going to get to the clip about like what I think it is about and what I've heard other people speculate that it's about soon. But let's keep moving on with these clips, though.
Trump is racist, though. He loves white nationalists, which is a weird term for a Nazi. Calling a Nazi a white nationalist is like calling a pedophile a kid friend, or Harvey Weinstein a ladies' man, which isn't really fair. He also likes plants.
It's so perfect, that one. No, it is true, though, that a large base of Trump's supporters were white nationalists and still are, you know, and So, I mean, there is nothing, like, you can't say that that's not true about Trump. It actually is true. Some of his most fervent supporters are white nationalists.
Yeah, for sure. He's embraced them and also defended them at times when they were indefensible, which is basically all the time.
Yeah. We still remember, what was that, Charlottesville, where, both sides had bad people. Like, that's BS, because the one side was Nazis and KKK members, and the other were anti-protest, or, like, counter-protesters.
Right.
So, I mean, how can you possibly say that there are good people on the KKK and Nazi side? I don't know. I mean, it bothers some people out here, at least, when someone says something like that. But, whatever. But a great part of that joke, though, is, if you remember Harvey Weinstein, the plant part of that, there was actually a time where he was actually finishing in plants. That's where that reference comes from, that he also likes plants, too. Because he would get women to his apartment or whatever, his hotel room, and then start jerking off in front of them. And if they didn't like it, he might actually just finish it off in a plant or something like that. It's really messed up stuff. But that's where that reference comes from. Yeah.
That's great. With that image in my head.
Now that you've all heard that, I'm sure you're very glad that I instilled that knowledge upon you. Anyway, let's get on with clips.
Trump's also an idea guy. He's got loads of ideas. You gotta love him for that. He wants to give teachers guns, and I support that, because then they can sell them for things they need, like supplies. A lot of protractors.
Yeah, and that is so on the nose. It's great. Oh my God, it's perfect. It's so interesting how the Republicans and Trump are sitting here wanting to put guns in the hands of teachers, but these are the same teachers also that have had their funding cut over and over and over again by who? The Republicans. And it's just really, really interesting how that whole thing works out. And so that joke is just so on the nose for Republicans. I'm sure they were just like really ecstatic about hearing it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's so topical because we are at a time where there are massive teacher walkouts and strikes going on, and they're primarily happening I can't even say primarily, because that gives a possibility of it happening in a blue state. Every state that it's been happening in is a red state. It's been West Virginia, it's been Kentucky, it's been Oklahoma, it's been Colorado, and it's been Arizona. All those 5 states, they're all red states. And a lot of it has to do with Republican policies, which are all about cutting public expenditures. Right.
Liquidation is what I come to call it, because it's not, because sometimes cutting taxes can help the economy, but that's not their goal. Their goal isn't to help the economy. Their goal is to transfer the economy to the rich people. It's to take what the country has, turn it into money, and give it to the rich people.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, that's linked a lot to our main topic later on, but we'll get to that when we do. There's 3 more clips here that I wanted to play as well. Let's get to the third from the last year.
Republicans are easy to make fun of. It's like shooting fish in a Chris Christie. But I also want to make fun of Democrats. Democrats are harder to make fun of because you guys don't do anything. People think you might flip the House and Senate this November, but you guys always find a way to mess it up. You're somehow going to lose by 12 points to a guy named Jeff Pedophile Nazi Doctor. Oh, he's a doctor.
That is spot on with the Democrats. They don't do anything. When there's been times in the past where like they were like, we're going to make sure that something happens for DACA. And so that's why we're going to shut down this spending bill, and then they do that for a weekend when no one's looking, and then Monday morning they sign the bill and stop their entire shutting down the government to get DACA action by getting no DACA action at all. Like, the Democrats have been monumentally weak for a very long time, and it seems like by design to me. And it's good that she's actually pointing it out, because they are really terrible most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's the reason why they failed historically, on a historic scale, during the previous midterm elections. Actually, I believe it was 2013, I believe, which basically, like, in the words of Obama, they got, I even forgot his word. It's such a weird word, like one that no one uses, but they got destroyed and lost them the House, lost them the Senate, lost them a bunch of local control in states.
Yeah.
So, yes, there's a lot wrong with the Democratic Party, and it's really refreshing for Michelle Wolf not to just focus on the elephant in the room, which is obviously
Chris Christie,
the Republicans and conservative Chris Christie, right? but to also turn some of that attention towards the inaction of the Democratic Party, which is important.
Yeah. And I did remember a thing that I wanted to talk about with that last clip, though, before that, with the teachers. Not only are teachers being screwed over in red states, though, they do also get screwed over in some of our more blue or purple states. Now, right here in New Jersey, where Chris Christie was governor, he was famous for going after the teachers' unions and kind of like screwing them over and cutting a lot of their funding and cutting a lot of their wages and everything. And so, I mean, he was a Republican, so, I mean, it was still under right-wing or a red Republican administration. But still, I mean, these things do happen not only in Republican majority states, because this is a Democrat majority state, even though somehow Republicans still keep getting into office somehow.
No, that's so true. I mean, there's so much wrong with our public education system. You know, the fact that you can be in the same state you can be in the same state of individuals, but in certain counties they would be doing so much better than others because they are funded through their property taxes, and it's just a mess. It's just all a mess, and it creates this. There's
problems in that. I'm just reading a story right now that says there was a white teacher who one of the black students fell asleep in their class, so she got up on the desk and put her feet on the student and grabbed their hair.
What?
To wake them up. The video got out, and obviously she retired.
Wow.
But the interesting part is there was a march of the white people in the town calling for her not to be fired.
Wow.
But for some reason...
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
That's pretty messed up.
That's so disgusting. In like, I mean, hey, I guess these are the individuals that you want to have a gun in the classrooms. I mean, can you imagine if this teacher, was armed at the time? I mean, she acted irrationally in that instance. Can you imagine her just even going the extra mile if she had a fire? If she was armed? I don't know. It's insane.
A teacher is going to be stupid enough one day to take the gun out and shoot it up into the ceiling to try and wake up someone in class. Wouldn't be surprised. And all of the fun that will have to ensue with. But I mean, it's really not a great idea to give more people in a school guns. That doesn't really make it safer there. That makes it so that there's guaranteed to be more guns in the area. And if a teacher does, snap one day, because that does happen to people sometimes, Now you have potentially a teacher with a gun inside the school. You know, at least if you have like security guards or something watching the door and screening everyone that comes in for a gun, that gun's already in the school. You know, and there's nothing you can do about that at that point. Right. And but anyway, let's get back to these clips, I guess. But unless you had more to add.
Yeah, just like one little thing. And it's just the other component to that specific incident, which is the racial component, which is there's so much racial animosity in this country there's so much racial animosity and such a lack of education on the history of this country itself that if anyone was as aware of the racial history of America, their minds would freaking explode at the sight of a slew of white protesters defending a white teacher that acted out of line to a black student in the classroom. At that point, they racialized the situation because, you know, before you could at least say, you know, that maybe race didn't necessarily was the leading factor into this teacher acting this way to the student, but these protesters, they've essentially framed it to be a racial, I guess, racial intent to the teacher's actions because they you know, they geared up and they they defended this teacher for this reprehensible action in the name of protecting one of their own, and it's just disgusting. Ugh.
Perhaps, but these are the last two though here, and these are where I think the media really got butthurt, and they needed to like focus on something else because they were upset by these ones. I think more than anyone, yeah, she goes after the media here, and she starts out with a pretty decent joke about print media, which is pretty great. But let's get into this here.
There's a lot of print media here. There's a ton of you guys, but I'm not going to go after media tonight because it's illegal to attack and buy newspapers. There's a ton of news right now. A lot is going on, and we have all these 24-hour news, and we could be covering, but instead we're covering like 3 topics. Every hour, it's Trump, Russia, Hillary, and a panel of 4 people that remind you why you don't go home for Thanksgiving. Milk comes from nuts now, all because of the gays.
And this is the start of her critique of the media. And yeah, she's poking at the media and saying, like, they could be covering everything, but they cover 3 things instead all day long. And if you've ever watched any of these news channels, you know that's true. Because I remember, like, when the Malaysian air flight went missing, there was, like, 24-hour coverage for, like, 3 weeks about, like, what could have happened and what did happen. And, like, they even had, like fake cockpits and pilot seats and everything. And they were like, well, what could have happened is the pilot would be sitting here and you see the knobs and stuff, and this might have happened. And, like, they just ran with that for weeks on end, just covering one story. They don't focus on all of the things that are happening. They only focus on certain things. And right now, they focus a lot on Trump, a lot on the Russia scandal thing, and also Clinton, because Trump keeps on bringing her up, and the Republicans keep bringing her up. And so this is all that they ever seem to focus on. And it's maddening to the rest of us, and it makes us think that these channels are just complete BS, and there's no worth in listening to them. You know, so most people don't even pay attention because of that, because these news stations just don't cover anything. But this next clip is her continuing with that, though, and maybe getting a little bit more under their skin. And you can hear after one of the things that she says here, where she says that she thinks that the media actually really loves him because he is helping them. And there's like a hush after she says that. And I think that's sort of indicative because, yeah. But anyway, let's get into it.
You guys are obsessed with Trump. Did you used to date him? Because you pretend like you hate him, but I think you love him. I think what no one in this room wants to is that Trump has helped all of you. He couldn't sell steaks or vodka or water or college or ties, but he has helped you. He's helped you sell your papers and your books and your tea. You helped create this monster, and now you're profiting off of him. And if you're gonna profit off of Trump, you should at least give him some money because he doesn't have any. Trump is so broke, he grabs pussies because he thinks there might be loose change in them. All right, like an immigrant who was brought here by his parents and didn't do anything wrong. I gotta get out of here. Good night. Flint still doesn't have clean water.
Oh man, it's perfect. Like there's so much there to talk about. The very end there, she says Flint still doesn't have clean water. They don't. They still don't have clean water. And that was a news story like months and months ago,
anymore.
right? Like a year ago, maybe?
Yeah, but they don't matter anymore, Chris. The elections are over now. Come on. Stop living in 2016. God.
Pretty much. But the immigrant little thing at the end there was pretty good too, because I mean that's the way that we treat these people now is you didn't do anything and your parents brought you here without your permission and all that anyway. You didn't really have any choice in the matter, but you know what, we got to kick you out anyway. And she was sort of like jabbing at that a bit, but she definitely, like, after she says that Trump has really actually helps them sell their books and all that, you hear that hush because they're like, oh shit, that's true. And they don't want to admit it. They don't want that out there. That actually gets under their skin. And that's what's so funny about it, is because it's so true. And some of the best comedy is the truth. And that one hits them and it hurts because it's absolutely true. And she did that little Trump's so broke, how broke is he thing. They did that earlier in her whole piece there. That's like 20 minutes long. The whole speaking part that she does. She started that earlier, and she did a few of those, and they were pretty funny too. I would definitely suggest anyone out there definitely go find the full length clip of it. It's really, really good. And I really look forward to her having her own show because she's hilarious. Did you guys have any words to add to this, or should we move on?
I'm good.
I mean, this is probably the most controversial correspondence dinner comedy set that I've witnessed. I mean, because
how many have you even witnessed in the first place, though? Too.
Yeah, that's
I don't know if I've seen more than this one, but
I have vivid memories of Obama's Correspondents Dinner, and how
I
they
think
were,
he had. Which one was it? Key or Peele was that one? And he was doing the angry Obama, I think, wasn't he? Or was
he had
dinner?
Jordan Peele up there with him. I'm not too sure that's for the Correspondents Dinner, but
I don't remember which one that was.
Yeah, but I mean, from my recollection, they've never been so scathing, because I think so many people they want, like, Obama presented himself in a way that made it very difficult to make fun of him personally, and so because of that, they either stuck to his policies or just made fun of everyone else. and when it comes to Trump, it's like, man, everything is just so wrong. Nothing is off, nothing is safe because there's so much about him.
Yeah, there's just a lot more to hate about Trump and his administration, I think, in a lot of regards.
Made fun of.
And they also lie all the time. And that was a recurring thing with her in talking about Kellyanne Conway and Sarah Huckabee Sanders and other Republicans is they lie all the time. That's all they do, and that's what she was criticizing Sarah about, and that's what hurt real bad, and she was butthurt about it. But it's true. They lie all the time. Like, if you pay attention to what's been going on, literally everything that she's been saying to the White House press conference and everything, it's all been lies. Just about all of it. Like, there are some things maybe that she hasn't lied about, but almost all of it has been like ridiculous lie after ridiculous lie after ridiculous lie after, it's just been insane. And there was a point, I do remember, when they actually, these press briefings from the White House have always been filmed since they started doing them, I think. And it's only under Trump now that they actually stopped allowing cameras in. They can, I think, maybe record them on audio devices, but you can't actually record them video anymore. And that's something that Trump has done to try and make it easier for them to lie more to people, I do believe.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Trump does. I mean, I don't think I'm out of line when I say that Trump doesn't want a free press. Like...
Yeah, no, you're not.
No.
He'd be a fascist if he wasn't fucking stupid.
Exactly. It's so true. I mean, he's done... I mean, and as
he threatened the NFL with tax. He threatened them, basically told them, if you don't stop the players doing the whole kneeling thing, then I'm going to increase your taxes, which is blatantly using the power of the state to try and cow a private company. You can't do that. That's an amendment violation.
That right there is violating free speech. That is violating the First Amendment.
Yeah. So when the right bitches about, these people on campuses are allowed to speak, Trump is literally trying to use state power to cow private organizations' speech.
But it's okay when it's more progressive views that are being trying to be impeded, though. That's the message, though. But if it's like a right winger trying to go to a campus and trying to speak, and they get booed off the stage, oh my God, their free speech was impinged on. How dare they do that? Whereas if it's a peaceful protest about like changing something in this country for the betterment of a whole group of people, then we can't have that. It's not cool, and you shouldn't be able to do that. It's just interesting, the hypocrisy that they often seem to project. But anyway, I guess we should get on to our main topic, because that took a while, that analysis of of Michelle Wolf. So our topic this week is austerity. And this is a big topic, and I don't know if we'll be able to do justice to it here. But basically, Oxford makes a dictionary, and their definition goes as follows. It is, quote, difficult economic conditions created by government measures to reduce public expenditure. And that's what our austerity is. Basically, public spending cuts. You've heard them 1,000,001 times here in America, and I'm sure over there in the UK, right? About cutting welfare programs, or cutting social security programs, or cutting funding for our teachers, or cutting funding for, you name it. There's just so many things. Infrastructure spending. They're always cutting that too. And that's why our roads are crumbling to the ground and our bridges are falling apart. But austerity happens when a government wants to cut down on its budget to try and balance their budget. Usually, like if they're spending too much and not taking in enough resources from taxes, their budget goes into deficit. And when they're in deficit, they gain large amounts of debt over time, because you're spending more than you're taking in. And so the idea with austerity is to cut your spending to bring up your revenue. But the problem typically seems to be when these governments do that, they're doing them at least in really bad times, because when you cut spending during a recession, that actually has a very bad negative effect on the economy as a whole. And when your economy is already down in a recession and not doing well, sending it further down and making it do less well, even still, by cutting spending, is just going to obviously be worse. I mean, it's obvious, right? I mean, but that's honestly what has been happening here in the United States, because anytime you have Republicans, what are the things that they want to do? Cut spending and cut taxes. Now, wait a minute. When you cut spending, you're trying to balance the budget, right? Why would you cut spending and cut tax revenue at the same time? Why would you do that? Isn't that actually worse? But like,
yeah, generally speaking, there is reasons to cut taxes in an economy. So,
of course, yes.
If you want to spur growth in the economy, you can cut taxes, so businesses are less likely to fail, so more people are employed and more people are contributing to the economy. Great. The problem is, if you're not got much money anyway, and you're trying to balance the budget, you're cutting your income and your expenditure. So what you end up with is just less stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, in a recession, really often you need more spending in order to supplement the deficit, because when you're in recession, people are spending less money. So if you can make up for that with a bit of government spending, your economy can sometimes recover through that.
Yeah. And I know you had a pretty decent analogy on it too, right?
Yeah, it's very simplistic, but it's as if you wanted to say, right, I'm going to balance my budget by cutting on my spending. I'm going to, eat cheaper food and stuff and go out less, and I'm also going to quit my job.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Now what you've got is just less money.
Yeah. And it's similar to that for sure. And like, this is what we're trying to get at, is like this austerity that these governments have been pushing is not working, and it won't work, especially in the situations we're in right now. You're not going to cut spending and cut taxes enough to get more money in the hands of the lower classes. That's not going to make the difference. What you need to do oftentimes is put more regulations in place so that the big businesses can't keep exploiting people's labor to the nth degree, and by like raising the minimum wage and maybe in some way capping the amount the top earners can make. That's the only way you can really put more money into people's hands and reinvigorate the economy. But these lawmakers tend to be paid by a certain group of people, a certain class of people, you might say. And it tends to be more corporations and really wealthy people are contributing to all of these politicians on both sides to put them in office. What for, you might ask? To cut their own taxes, to cut their taxes and to raise yours. And then also to give you less benefits in the long run too. So, the reason we have a social safety net is because our economy is not working for the lower classes. That's why you need one of those. And in the perfect world of the libertarian world, where we get rid of these welfare programs, we can do that. We can, but we actually have to do it the right way. We actually have to make it so that the economy actually works for everyone, not just the upper class, but the lower class, the middle class. Everyone needs something. But I don't know. I'm probably going on a tangent here. But
I mean, that certainly for sure. I mean, it's it's criminal, the examples that you just see all around the world. I mean, it's happening in our own backyards, but very specifically, one example is what's going on in Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico is billions of dollars in debt, and in 2016, the government passed a bill which created an unelected board that would have oversight of the budget. And who are on this board? Creditors and people who are in control of bonds. And very recently, and this year, they suggested of slashing retirement benefits in the year 2020 so that they can reduce the overall deficit. And then they also went on to suggest that that they eliminate or reduce the amount of vacation time, sick time, and that businesses should be able to fire anyone for reasons that they don't reveal. So
who are all of those things hurting the most? They're lowering retirement funds. They're lowering the amount of sick leave. They're lowering all of these things. Who does that hit the most? Typically, is that going to hit the billionaire that's in charge of the company, or is it going to hit the regular worker?
Right. Yeah, it'll affect the Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos of the world. That's who it's going to hurt.
Oh
most,
yeah,
of course.
It's going to hurt them in their heart. It's going to be so hard for them to deal with. They might not even be able to sleep at night. Oh, I mean, they're definitely going to be able to sleep at night, but it might just make it just that little bit much harder for them to do so. And that's a struggle right there, guys. That is the struggle that they have to go through on a daily basis with these types of policies. But I digress.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, that's the reality of it all. I mean, we're seeing it we're seeing it here too. The Trump administration is proposing to cut Social Security in order to mitigate their passing of the tax break for businesses. So, and we all knew this was coming, and that's just the sad part about it. We knew that they going to have to balance this out some way, and of course, social programs are the first thing they turn to, and so.
Then they cut taxes and just lose loads of money to do that.
Right. So it's the type of thing where people forget that the power is within their own hands, and so that they need to start voting within their own interests and stop being so manipulated by these dog whistles. Just because they dislike the way a certain lifestyle, or they dislike the way that a person looks, a group of people look, that gets you nowhere. Like,
pull up your pants,
setting other people back doesn't guarantee that things will be better for you. And most likely that is a trickle down effect where in fact it will actually the depreciation of your own life and benefits will trickle down to you eventually because you're not in the lead. So stop voting like you're one. So
yeah. We had a friend that we worked with, Jordan. His name was Mike as well, interestingly enough. But he had some weird issues. It seems like some people tend to be like, well, I want to make it there someday. I want to be a rich person and I want to have those benefits. But you're not. And it's very unlikely that most people will ever get there. So, like, I just don't get why some people tend to want to keep the status quo in this regard when you don't take advantage of those benefits, and you may never in your lifetime get those wealthy people benefits.
But it's totally understandable though, because in America the only way to prosper is to be is to be financially, I guess, plentiful. To have, so we don't have a public healthcare system. So you need money in order to have a decent healthcare plan. You need money to for so many of the basic necessities. So in order to just live at a medium level, you need to at least, make a very decent wage, because the government is not going to provide these things to you. If you have a baby, most employers give you a month or two off of sometimes unpaid. Yeah, most times unpaid leave, so that and it's for you to just go right back to the daily grind, because the government doesn't provide you with the necessary benefits to sustain yourself at a time where you're caring for a little one, or medical debt is amongst the highest within the highest deficits within our country that people are suffering from.
Yeah.
So
and I would say it's so damning when there are actually poor people in this country that purposely get put in jail. They commit a crime, they go to jail purposely so that they can actually get health care. That is one of the most damning things that actually does happen in this country, because
it does.
The poor and the lower classes just cannot afford health care in this country. Mm-hmm. And there have been cases where people actually would commit a crime and then they would wait for the cops to show up so that they can get arrested and get put back into prison, or go to prison in the first place. That happens in this country. How disgusting is that?
Right.
I don't know if there's any other countries in this on Earth that have that happening. I don't know.
Well, I mean, we have the highest incarceration rate, I believe, in the world. But and
a really high recidivism rate as well. So people who go to prison in America tend to go back, partly because of your commercialized prison system, and partially because your prisons are archaic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
Like, there is a science around reforming criminals, and Americans just don't seem to care.
Yeah. It's tough to care about people that break the law. That really is the case. Like, when you're a law-abiding citizen and someone else is breaking the law and taking advantage of the law and all that, it's easy to be like, yeah, fuck you, you're getting what you deserve. But like, I guess that's a discussion we really need to have on a later date, because that's going to be something else that we have to deal with. We're getting a little off topic, but
it's true, and we're seeing that austerity is just happening all around the globe, and it's one of the it's on top of people's lists. I mean, it's the reason why people put Trump in office, because he promised he's promised so much that would have increased the the benefits of retirees and of even the minimum wage. He went on record to say that he would increase it. He did not necessarily say about how much, but these are things that everyone wants, and just why don't we have them if we live in a free democracy?
Yeah.
If it's on everyone's list, then why isn't it something that we have already?
I mean, another funny thing about this election cycle was Donald Trump was actually positioning himself on some issues far to the left of Hillary Clinton. So, I mean, it's interesting because...
It was almost all lies.
Oh, of course. He was lying about all of it, but he was saying the things that the left-wing side wanted to hear. They wanted to hear universal, health care. And he even said that a few times. He even actually talked about that and advocated for it a few times. You know, that's something that Hillary Clinton never did. You know, she was not in favor of that. Like, he staked himself on a left side of her because she's so right wing. And it's just, the Democrats really, really should have had Bernie Sanders as the nominee. Man, it's really depressing that he lost the primary. He would have walked away with the election against Trump. There would have been no contest, I don't think. But anyway, back to austerity, though. I know you've talked about austerity measures there in the UK. Can you name some of the things that they've been doing over there?
Of course, for everything, across the board, as far as the eye can see. A lot of what they call restructuring, which is actually sort of an amortization. So if you get less professional staff to do professional roles, you can pay them less. I've talked about this before, which is a big problem in our police force, also in nursing and hospitals.
In a lot of professions, really. Like, even I worked at a law office, and like what they were doing was taking some of the work away from like actually like educated paralegals and sort of like streamlining it for people with no that didn't really need to have an educational background, so that they can do parts of the process. And that's what I was doing. I wasn't educated, and I just sort of had a data entry job, and that was sort of really all it was. And so that would have been something a paralegal might have done, but they would have done a lot larger amounts of the process. And so it makes them money because now they can do hundreds a month of these different types of jobs. And they can pay their workers less, and they can pump them out quicker in doing so. When you don't need to have expertise, it makes it easier for them to make more money.
Mm-hmm. That and straight cut into fog, which is one of the big reasons why pick a stat is getting worse. Crime's on the rise, poverty is on the rise, education rates are falling, just everything's getting to shit.
Yeah. Seems like you need to make Britain be about British again.
Yeah. We totally just need to leave the EU and that'll solve everything.
Yeah, that'll totally solve everything. That's how it works, right? But, yeah, we have, like I said earlier, we have Republicans here always trying to cut all kinds of things to the bone, especially what they call entitlement programs, which are Social Security, unemployment benefits, welfare programs, food stamps, and the likes. That we've actually talked about a lot of those in the past on a previous episode. But them cutting those programs, that can in some ways be considered austerity. What they're trying to do is cut the budget to typically what it is. They're trying to cut the budget so that they can actually hand out more tax cuts. So it doesn't hurt as much. So that's what they do here in America. But there is...
like I say, I call it liquidation. So they are trying to take the country's wealth and give it to the rich people.
Yeah.
They're not trying to save the budget. They're trying to liquidate the country's wealth.
Yeah. I guess because of that, it's not exactly austerity. Austerity is them trying to fix a budget problem by cutting spending. But this is, I guess, them cutting spending so that they can hand out tax cuts. Yeah,
austerity itself is a tool which a government might use perfectly reasonably if it had to, if it was a sound economic policy. Then great, sure. The problem is it's used by conservatives a lot to justify basically just handing money to rich people. So it's austerity measures. We've got to cut public spending and then just give all the money to the rich people. That's not saving money.
Also, deregulation is also another way that they cut spending.
That's
as
another
it were.
buzzword. Smaller government, less government interference.
Yeah.
Right.
Less regulation, what that basically means is regulation is protection. Every regulation is one more way someone can't screw you over. So what it's basically saying is, we're going to have less ways we're going to stop them from screwing you over. Have fun.
Yeah. I do remember when Brexit was in full force and they were still campaigning on it. There was like, oh, there's like millions of EU regulations that we have to deal with, and we're not going to have to deal with any of them anymore once we leave the EU. And like some of them were like pillow, like regulations on pillows, like that pillows have to be a certain like material or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I do remember stories about that.
They found loads about pillows. What they basically did was type pillow into the search and linked everything that came up, and it's like 50 odd regulations. But a lot of those were things like pillow-shaped cereal, or a pillow joint, which is in a car apparently.
Oh, yeah.
Things that aren't actually related to bed pillows. Most of them were fire regulations. They have to fire and like suffocation regulations. So they have to be there's regulations of how hard it is to catch it on fire, and when they do catch on fire, how long does it burn for? How hot does it burn for? How much smoke do they produce? That kind of thing.
And those regulations are trying to make things not able to burn as easily.
Yeah, obviously.
And so I would think a rational person would look at that and say, that's actually a good regulation, right?
Yeah, there was a great video of some fucking idiot Brexiter standing in front of like an EU flag, and he goes, I am going to declare that I don't like the European. I'll have to link it here or something. It's great. I'll link it on the video on the podcast. And he tries to set fire to this EU flag, and it doesn't catch for ages. He stood there like a lemon trying to light it on fire. Turns out the flag is protected by EU fire regulations.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's been a few of those people, like even over here in the United States, where someone's trying to like burn the American flag because they hate liberals so much or something like that. They're trying to get it to light with like a little tiny lighter, and it's just not working. It's always funny to watch them struggle. But there was actually a video recently, this last week, of a guy, a right winger. I guess he was what was termed a Proud Boy. These guys, apparently they pride themselves on resisting the temptation to masturbate is one of the things that they actually do in this group. But they're
What?
Yeah, they're some kind of right-wing group. I don't know enough about them, but they are affiliated with like the white nationalists, I believe, and that kind of movement, that side of the thing, like the alt-right, you might want to call it. But there were left-wing protesters with signs, and apparently this one guy went up to the leftist protesters and grabbed one of their signs and was trying to tear it in front of them and like rip it up and throw it in the trash. And he couldn't do it. He was like sitting there struggling in front of these leftist protesters trying to rip it in half. And they're like encouraging him the entire time. Like, oh, come on, you can do it. You're almost there. You're so close. And he's just struggling and struggling in front of them. And it's just hilarious. And it's just like, it's funny how like these right wingers can sometimes be like, they just struggle so hard to try and do something and they just ultimately fail. Eventually he just folds it in half and like walks away with it because he didn't want to throw it in the trash because the protesters could have just picked it up out of the trash and used it again. But like, it was funny. It was hilarious. I definitely suggest people finding that video and watching it. It's great. But yeah, going back to austerity, I guess. This is something that happened famously in Greece, actually, since the recession of '08 hit. I believe Greece's financial troubles actually preceded the financial crisis. And the financial crisis of '08, the recession, actually made them worse. And so what happened was at a point, the EU stepped in and put a program together for Greece to get back on track. But the problem was it was sort of like a loan from these big banks in the rest of Europe. Like, I think some of them were French, some of them were German, and I can't remember where the other ones were from. But these institutions bailed out Greece's economy, sort of. They gave them these loans. However, they also put stipulations in there that forced them to employ austerity measures just so that they can cut their spending. And the problem was Greece was already in a recession. And once these austerity measures got put into place fully, it skyrocketed unemployment. It destroyed their economy. So many families lost everything in that time. And today, they are still living in poverty, many, many people in that country. I don't think they've really rebounded yet. And it's because of the austerity measures that were forced upon them by the EU and these banks. And these banks don't want to lose their money, so they want repayment from the government there. So it's just such a massive catastrophe there in Greece. And I don't know if it's getting better. There is a new government in place now. I believe the party in power's name is Syriza. And they came into power on a more progressive platform. They were vowing to end austerity measures and all that, and they were going to get the economy running again. They were going to give people jobs and all that, and they were going to do a lot of great work. But from what I've read, at least, I'm going to link a piece from Al Jazeera on it, and it's actually written in February of this year. It actually focuses on this family. I think their last name is Filios. Their family is still begging for food on a daily basis to survive. And they lost everything. They used to have a decent home a while back, and now they're living in an apartment that was provided to them by the local church, I believe. And they have to go around town to bakeries and other places to beg for scraps of food. And it's becoming harder and harder because businesses are becoming less and less prone to actually giving out handouts. And it even says in there that there are some places that they'll ask, and then it's essentially they ask some places and they refuse to give anything, and then later on they look in the trash cans and there's just a bunch of food just thrown out. So I mean, it's not like they couldn't give them anything. It's that these companies just won't do it. And I get it in some ways. These companies, they lose money if they just hand out all this food for free. But on the other side of it, there is still a major crisis for so many people in that country. Unemployment in Greece, I believe, was at 58% at one point, and I think it's still around 50% now, if I remember correctly what they said in these articles that I was reading about this. I can't find it off the top here right away. But their unemployment numbers are still really high, and young unemployment is about like 3/4 as well. So I mean, there just really aren't jobs still, and this is the cost of severe austerity measures, and it's just not getting better over there, and nothing has been changing. This new government was supposed to change things, but they've largely bowed their heads to the powers that be. And they're just sort of, they don't really have much they can do. They can't renege on those deals with the EU. There is a possibility that they leave the European Union altogether, but people don't largely don't want to do that either, because that would actually make things worse in the short term. It might make things better long term. But on the short term, it would actually plunge them even further down in the spiraling hole. So it's a mess. I don't know what is going to happen in Greece to change that, but that is what's going on right now, unfortunately.
And you said that the unemployment rate was at 50%?
Around 50% from what I remember reading about it. I can look for that real quick if you guys...
I mean, yeah, for sure. Because that is the case. That is like, that's astronomical. Like, even during the Great Depression, the unemployment rate was at the highest was at 25% in the U.S. And you're saying that theirs is at 50? That is insane. Like, I can't even fathom what that would even look like. I mean, right now our unemployment rate is at, I believe it's around 4% here in the U.S. Like, and there's still so many people who are unemployed within our population. But just imagine it being half of the overall population. That's just insane. But yeah, I mean, that is the reality for so many people. I mean, reading up on austerity, it's honestly like austerity measures are being implemented everywhere. Like, I've read up on Spain in the wake of the 2009 global financial crisis. They slashed funding to their national health care service, and when once medication would be free of cost, now there's a bill attached to certain prescription, and which is making it much harder for people to be able to take them daily. Forces them to ration and to decide whether or not they're going to eat or pay for their medication. And it has also had effects on the amount of the quality of the services that are given. The workforce within the healthcare industry slashed by about 30,000 since then, and apparently the equipment is depreciating as well. There's complaints even as small as the needles that are given to diabetics, which have been reported to cause more pain. So austerity, it's obviously it's a sensible approach to reducing a nation's deficit, except a lot of it has to do with where that is being taken from. And yes, austerity is a necessary evil, but it's some things just need a lot more attention, especially when you're talking about slashing the budget of your national healthcare system. It's just the effects that it'll just have on so many people are just atrocious. It's really sad.
Yeah, and I'm not finding the numbers like right now on the on how many people are unemployed still. I did see one part about this New Yorker piece, I believe it was from, where there was this town where unemployment reached a peak of 80% in Greece.
Wow!
So that's pretty bad.
That is really bad.
Yeah. And there's this other quote here from this Al Jazeera piece here. It says, more than half of Greeks endured financial hardship in December of 2017, according to a study published by the University of Macedonia in Thessalonica? Or Loniki? It's Greek. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that shows you that more than half of the country is still having financial trouble. And that's pretty insane. And actually here also it says that study found that less than 7% of the respondents had experienced no financial problems that month. So only 7% of the country experienced no financial problems. Everyone else did.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, and apparently this is like, and of course, like austerity is a big topic amongst progressive circles. But I mean, it seems like conservatives are kind of getting over it too, or getting over it as well. I mean, there was a recent poll here from, according to Number Cruncher Politics, and this is an article from the Financial Times. One that was written on May the 2nd this year. In the UK, 53% of conservatives say that austerity measures have been a little too far or much too far. And of course, when it comes to Lib Dems, or when it comes to Labour, that's 78% believe that it's gone too far. And when it comes to Lib Dems, that's 74% believe it's gone too far. And overall, 66% of all eligible voters believe that it has gone too far.
Voting for them, no?
That's the problem.
I mean,
Everyone knows.
Move. We just had our local election, so an incredible cynical move with the British public at the moment, who disapprove of the Tories massively, but keep voting for them for some fucking stupid reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It just shows where their priorities are.
They're fucking stupid, a lot of them.
Yeah, and there's there's another very serious, I guess, warning I can give. You know, like, there's a very seriously dangerous outcome that can come from all of this financial distress in these countries. And I need only look back to the 1920s in Germany, when they were having the most severe financial troubles of their times for years and years before that and everything. They were more stable economically. After World War I, they were screwed over by the deal that happened. And then once the Great Depression hit, America wanted all of their money back from Germany, and that put Germany into such a massive economic black hole that it led to the rise of the Nazi regime. And so when these things get really bad, what happens is people get angry. People get pissed off, they get angry, and they want actual solutions. And when these politicians keep giving them bullshit solutions that aren't actually solutions, but only just handing more and more and more of the economy to the wealthy, what is going to happen? What do you see in our country today? What do you see in the UK today? We see the rise of these extremist right-wing groups, these self-proclaimed white nationalists. Or, yeah, I guess they do call themselves white nationalists, not just nationalists. You know, they are the beginning of a new horrible movement that can happen. And this is the worry that I have of these situations, that if we don't do this right, if we keep going down this path of BS austerity, then we are just going to lead to something truly, truly horrifying in our future.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you certainly see it. I mean, there's a surge in the amount of hate crimes in the U.S. targeted to Jewish individuals and Muslim individuals and people of color, and so and I'm sure women as well. I'm just not too sure on that figure exactly, but yeah, it's we're inundated with, especially during the election, with Trump and Republicans saying that immigrants or unauthorized immigrants were a drain on our systems, were a drain on, these public, I guess, help me out here.
Public programs?
These public programs, exactly. And so within that, it's kind of mixed two things that it's confirmation bias to so many people, especially older folks within these countries, which, they have a fear of people who look different than them. And also they know that, life is harder now because, these benefits are being taken away from us. So those are two things that are true within their minds. And one is true within their mind, and one is a legitimate fact. Except when politicians tell them that they're synonymous, these immigrants and this reduction of your benefits, there's a correlation. They get angry and they vote in favor of the conservatives. And so how do you even approach people like that? And I think so many people have tried. You have Jeremy Corbyn has tried, Bernie Sanders have tried, except for some reason the message still isn't getting to them. And when it comes to these white, when it comes to the alt-right, those are all marketing terms, designed by those organizations to be palatable to the public. Fuck it, they, like Michelle Wolf said, they are Nazis. So
white nationalist is calling a Nazi a white nationalist is like calling a pedophile a child friend. I mean, that is honestly
that's it.
Yeah, I mean, they're neo-Nazis. These used to be neo-Nazi groups that this white nationalist movement came from. Actually, there is a guy that's from Life After Hate. He's one of the founding members of Life After Hate, and he used to be in the skinhead groups, and they were essentially just angry kids, but like over time they became more and more like Nazi-esque and all of that. And like there was a shift at one point. I think Richard Spencer was in part of that shift where they started changing the rhetoric. Before it was just these angry, stupid kids just being angry at everyone because their life sucked and all of that. And it sort of like melded into a more sophisticated sounding enterprise by people like Richard Spencer. And they started changing it from neo-Nazis to white nationalism. And that palette's better for people. It sounds more friendly to people when you call it nationalism. Because, I care about my country. That's what I'm doing this for. I care about my country and freedom. And that sounds better than, I just want to, push out all of these other people because I think they're all like subhuman. It's a bit different, right? That doesn't palate as well. So it's these groups are gaining power though right now. Trump, he panders to that crowd, and he is in control of our nation right now. And the Republican Party is trying to elect more of these idiots into office. And the UK, you have, what is it, UKIP over there? They're doing similar stuff. It's the same thing. They're just trying to push for a more sophisticated and more palatable vocabulary around their racism and their hatred.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's and like Michelle Wolf pointed out, the media plays a very important role in the messaging of all of this. So for years it's been very popular to blame the other for for the unfortunate reduction of so many people's lives. And I think very recently it's been, I think a lot of media outlets have started to take responsibility in terms of reporting, the actual reasons for these different cuts. However, they can't turn back all of the damage that they've contributed to. So a lot of older folk are used to that kind of messaging, who are used to that kind of messaging already have it deeply ingrained into them. So so they steer towards conservative media outlets like Fox News, who pretty much just cater their stories, cater these messages to a group of older folk who are very used to it growing up, and that's why their viewership usually ranges. I believe it either starts at 75 years old or it's a little bit below that mark or below that number, but I'm not far off. But but yeah,
all that I can say is we're gonna make America great again. That's my Reagan impression. Is not good.
I thought so.
Because literally, Reagan said that he was one of the first people, I think, that actually started coining the "Make America Great Again" a phrase, and that's where the Trump organization took it from. That's exactly where they took it from. There's actually a man named Roger Stone who worked for Reagan during that time, actually. And I think he may have been in the room when they were working up those the rhetoric that they were going to use for their campaigning. And part of that campaigning was "Make America Great Again." And unshockingly, this time around, Donald Trump had Roger Stone working for him and helping him out. And shockingly, we have "Make America Great Again" coming up. It's weird.
Right.
It's palatable. Yeah. That's why. It makes the older generations look back to a time when things were better. And for them, that means like, oh, yeah, he wants things to be better like they used to be, before all this really terrible stuff happened. And like, in some ways, there were terrible things that did happen. But then they sort of attribute those terrible things that did happen to the wrong causes. But, I digress. And
it's so true. Things society was economically prosperous for the average Joe and Jane around that time. And it just so happens that around that time, minorities and women were being marginalized to the point of excruciating violence, and so a lot of people looked at that and correlated, and they were being told that look, that these things are one and the same, and so Trump is just harping on this dog whistle that will, put a battery into the voting block, into the most, I would say the most, guaranteed voting block within our country, which is the elderly. They get out every time, like exactly when they need to, and they're very dependable. And so if you want to win an election, that is the demographic that you need to target. And so, and so it just so happens that is the information that they grew up with, and those are the correlations that they made. And yes, things were once good for them, but it was not because of the marginalization of so many different people. They're just not one and the same, and it's too late to turn back that hand. That's just how they're going to vote, and. But it's important for younger folk who are more progressive. 75% of millennial women are Democrat. That's freaking insane. They want a more progressive society, one that benefits everyone and not just individuals, which is what America's always been about. Unfortunately, America hasn't always been about individual rights. The success of an individual, which is you, and not necessarily very concerned about the we aspect of a society. So I think a lot of people want to change that, and hopefully that is where things go. And that's not just in the U.S. That goes in the UK too, and even in like some Middle Eastern countries. There, a lot of young people are starting to think more secular and want a more just society because they've grown up in a system that was stifling and was put so much pressure on the individual instead of promoting the working together of a society. So just hopefully that's just where we go.
Hopefully, but with
it sucks that we have to end conversations with that. Hopefully that's how the chips fall. It's so uncertain. I hate it.
What we can do is get involved and make the change that we want to see happen. It's not going to happen on its own, and we know human nature it's the way it is. People don't like change. People resist change. If things are bearable or are acceptable for people, things don't change. And the only way they will change is if people stand up and stop accepting what's going on. And that's the only way we can change things. But with that, guys, we got to get out of here and let you guys get on with your week. And I'm glad that we still have so many people listening to the podcast every week. I'm so amazed at how many people listen. I don't get it.
It's awesome.
I love you guys out there, and thank you so much for listening. And if you guys want, you can just send us over to one of your friends if you think this might be something that they'd be interested in listening to. Send them our way, and we'll see what happens. We want to build this thing, guys, and we love you guys so much for being here with us. And if you can help us out a little bit, that's great. You can always help us out by liking us on iTunes and all that, whatever the hell you do. Favorite us on, I don't know what it is. Send us reviews or something. I don't know how it works. But,
rate us 5 stars.
Yeah,
you truly enjoy what we make, and that'll help so much.
That's free. That's free to do. Yeah. You don't have to put any money up if you don't want to. You can always, if you do want to, hand us a few dollars every month, you can donate to our Patreon, and help us out that way, and that definitely is very appreciated as well. It's all needed though. You don't have to put money in if you don't want to. Just give us a like or something like that. Some stars, anything. Anything is better than nothing, guys. And we really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for listening. You guys have a great week. And let's get out of here, guys. We're way over time. So have a good one.
Bye.